We want you to be part of our studio audience. Believe us, it's a great time for everyone.
You got to trust us on that one unless you want to show up yourself. Book your seat by visiting WBOC.com and clicking on our picture at the top of the page. There's the number you can call if you like, 443-880-9116.
This is the CBS Evening News with Scott Pelley.
By now, you probably consider him family. Scott Pelley has worked at CBS for more than 2 decades, most recently as the anchor and managing editor of the CBS Evening News. You may remember when Delmarva Live headed to New York City to spend some time with Scott on the eve of his first anniversary as the network's lead evening anchor. We wanted to find out more about the man behind the desk.
The best lesson that I've learned over the course of my life is don't take no for an answer. CBS turned me down 5 times in a row when I tried to get a job here back in the late 80s.
Something people probably don't even realize. 5
times in a row over 5 years.
Wow.
And I decided that they were wrong. I wasn't wrong, they were wrong. And so I beat my head against the side of this building for 5 years, and finally they just gave up, threw in the towel, and hired me.
Well, Scott's persistency certainly paid off, as CBS News has won several awards on his watch.
And one person who may understand some of the pressures that Scott faces is WBOC's Steve Hammond, and he joins us here in the studio today. Now, you recently went up to see Scott up in New York. Any changes in the past 3 years?
You know what? I think there aren't any changes. It's more about what has stayed the same, and it's a really good thing. You watch evening news, the network level, each night, and you see other networks. You'll hear them talk about Kim Kardashian and more celebrity-driven fluff news, not the CBS Evening News. It is still a hard newscast giving you the news of the day from around the world.
Yeah.
Did anything surprise you during your visit to CBS Evening News?
I think one of the things that surprised me is the newsroom itself on West 57th Street in New York. That's the fishbowl right there where they have the editorial meeting. It's all pretty small. They have a lot of people jammed in there. We were there for their 3 o'clock editorial meeting. That's the executive producer, Steve Kappas, who is excellent at his job, former NBC News president. But they crammed 25 senior and field producers into this room to talk about the stories of the day, how things are progressing, maybe some things they need to make room for. On this day, they were 4 minutes heavy going into the newscast. Things had to go.
Yeah. Okay. So you spoke with Scott Pelley about some of the challenges that network news faces these days. Tell me about that.
One of the big challenges I just mentioned is just what are you going to fit in? You know, when you take out the commercials, basically it's 22 minutes. You have 22 minutes to tell the news of the day, and you want to leave the viewer smiling at the end, so they have, you know, a lighter story. But with so much information available on the internet, some of it true, some of it not true, what Scott says what we'd like to do is just give people the facts of what is relevant, whether it's in this country or around the world. And it's a challenge for them every day.
So of all the times to stop by and visit, you were there during a really interesting time, weren't you?
I was. It was the day that Joe Biden announced that he was not going to run for president. And so it was neat to have this local connection, and I talked with Scott about that, and he said that he was not surprised that Biden didn't run because his poll numbers had been relatively low. But it was just interesting to have this local connection on the same day that we were there.
You know, newsrooms, we know, can be pretty chaotic before airtime, and that certainly was the case up there, wasn't it?
Actually, it was not.
Really?
These folks are so good at what they do. They're very quiet, and they do their jobs quietly and efficiently. And there's not a sense of chaos. And even while they're on the air and in the final minutes leading up to the broadcast, I mean, Pelley was agonizing over a couple of words in his lead story about Joe Biden, and just changing tweaks here and there and shortening copy, trying to make it all fit. That's the biggest challenge, is the clock.
Wow. Well, we certainly look forward to seeing your story inside the CBS Evening News. It's going to be tonight. You'll see it on the WBOC News at 6. Steve, thank you so much for coming.
Looking forward to
Thanks
seeing
for having
that. While they are 2 newsmen who give us the headlines, here's one dog that's stealing them. Take a look at Louie. You have to hear the hilarious story behind the photobomb that's just downright funny. That is next.
But first, it's time to check back in with Sean Stryker for the second clue in our search for Stryker. Sean, what are you going to give us?
Yeah, guys, I got your second clue. Here it is. I hope it helps you out. This town's library is the oldest library on the Eastern Shore and the second oldest in the state. Well, in case you're not up on your Delmarva Library history, I got one more clue that might help you out. Delmarva Life, we'll be right back.